CFE Test Tips 2026 Certified Fraud Examiner Certification Exam. All you need to know. Question 1. According to Donald Cressy's fraud triangle, which of the following is one of the three legs required for a person to commit fraud? Isolation, rationalization, violation. None of the above. Cressy's fraud triangle consists of three elements: perceived non-shareable financial pressure, perceived opportunity, and rationalization. Question 2. Which of the following methods of identity theft involves watching someone enter their personal information on a computer or keypad? Vishing, baiting, shoulder surfing, dumpster diving. Shoulder surfing is the practice of looking over a person's shoulder to see their PIN, password, or other sensitive data. Question 3. A government procurement manager awards a lucrative contract to a vendor in exchange for an offer of future employment. This is an example of which type of scheme? Asset misappropriation, financial statement fraud, corruption, larceny. Corruption schemes involve the use of influence in business transactions in a way that violates a person's duty to their employer, such as bribery or illegal gratuities. Question 4. Which data analysis technique is commonly used during a fraud investigation to identify patterns or anomalies in the frequency of transactions? Regression analysis, t-test analysis, cluster analysis, frequency analysis. Frequency analysis involves identifying the number of times a certain value or event occurs, which can help spot unusual spikes or anomalies. Question 5. To detect healthcare provider fraud, a fraud examiner should be alert for which of the following red flags? Consistently low percentage of coding outliers, lack of supporting documentation for claims under review, unusually low profits compared to similar businesses, details in supporting documentation that match the claim exactly. A lack of supporting documentation is a classic red flag for fictitious services or inflated billing in healthcare fraud. Question 6. Which of the following would be helpful in the prevention of expense reimbursement schemes? Requiring all receipts to be submitted electronically without verification, comparing current expenses to historical expenditure amounts, eliminating the need for a specific business purpose explanation, allowing managers to approve their own expenses. Trend analysis and comparison with historical data can help identify unusual increases in expense claims. Question 7. Which of the following methods would be least effective in detecting a skimming scheme? Comparing register totals to the cash count, confirming customers' outstanding account balances, counting the physical inventory, examining journal entries for accounts receivable write-offs. Skimming occurs before the cash is recorded in the register, so comparing the register total to the cash count will not show the missing money. Inventory counts or customer confirmations are better. Question 8. Which of the following is a right of individuals accused of crimes under the UN's International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICPER? Right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Right to a trial without public disclosure. Right to choose the presiding judge. Right to avoid prosecution by paying a fine. The ICPER guarantees the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law. Question 9. After being charged with money laundering, a suspect breaks into their accountant's office to destroy incriminating documents. This action would most likely result in which additional charge? Conspiracy, obstruction of justice, fraudulent misrepresentation, larceny. Destroying evidence or interfering with an investigation is a classic example of obstruction of justice. Question 10. In an adversarial legal system, who generally selects the expert witnesses? The jury, the judge only, the parties involved, the local bar association. In adversarial systems, like the US or UK, the parties typically choose and call their own expert witnesses. Question 11. If an attorney emails a fraud examiner a privileged memorandum to assist in an embezzlement case, has the legal professional privilege been waived? Yes, because it was sent via email. Yes, because it was shared with a third party. No, if the examiner needed the information to work on the case for the attorney. No, because the privilege belongs to the attorney. Privilege is generally not waived when a client or attorney shares information with an agent, like a fraud examiner, whose services are necessary for the legal representation. Question 12. Which type of data is the most difficult to recover during a digital forensic examination? Deleted files that have not been overwritten. Web browser history. Files that have been overwritten. Instant messenger communications. Once data has been overwritten by new data, it is generally considered unrecoverable through standard forensic means. Question 13. Marilyn, a CFE, is preparing for an admission-seeking interview. She should be reasonably sure of all the following except: all other reasonable investigative steps have been taken. The interview's time and location can be controlled. No other person was involved in the fraud. The respondent has a reasonable probability of being the perpetrator. An examiner does not need to be sure that no other person was involved. Fraud often involves collusion. Question 14. In a jurisdiction that prohibits pretexting with financial institutions, which action would be illegal? Searching a suspect's trash for bank statements. Falsely claiming to be an account holder's spouse to obtain records. Using a stolen credit card to make a purchase. Reviewing public real estate records. Pretexting is the act of using false pretenses or impersonation to obtain information from a financial institution. Question 15. Which of the following describes predictive analytics in a fraud investigation context? Automating repetitive manual tasks using software bots. Using historical data and statistics to build models that forecast trends. Analyzing neural networks to identify complex physical patterns. Creating a random sample for audit purposes. Predictive analytics uses historical data and statistical modeling to predict future outcomes or identify potential risks. Question 16. According to research by Steve Albrecht, which of the following is the most common personal characteristic motivating fraudsters? A desire for revenge, high personal debt, living beyond their means, lack of recognition at work. Albrecht's research identified living beyond one's means as the most common red flag/motivation. Question 17. Which statement is true regarding the corporate governance requirements for a multinational corporation? It is only subject to the laws of its home country. It must comply with laws and regulations in every country where it operates. It is exempt from local laws due to international treaties. It is only required to follow the OECD principles. Corporations must adhere to the local legal and regulatory frameworks of every jurisdiction in which they conduct business. Question 18. When establishing a fraud risk management program, management should eliminate all fraud risk regardless of cost, balance the investment in controls with the benefit and risk appetite, assign a quantitative score to every single risk regardless of materiality, ignore risks that have not occurred in the past. Fraud risk management involves a cost-benefit analysis where controls are implemented based on the level of risk the organization is willing to accept. Question 19. Regarding employee screening, when should an organization conduct a background check on an existing employee? Never. Once they are hired, they are cleared. When the employee is promoted to a position with access to sensitive assets. Every month for all employees. Only if the employee requests one. Continuous or event-based screening, like during a promotion to a sensitive role, is a key prevention strategy. Question 20. According to the ACFE's report to the nations, what is consistently the most common method of fraud detection? Internal audit, external audit, tips, management review. Tips, often through a hotline, are consistently the most effective and common way fraud is detected.